Hey everybody, this is AI with Dr. Craig Hansen, and I'm delighted to be here with Gary, who I just discovered is a brother from another mother and seen more of New Zealand than I actually have, and he's based right now in DC. Good morning.
Morning. Good to talk to you. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you very much for greeting me with our national greeting, and lovely to see you. Why don't you tell us about your backstory, your origin story, and what you've been doing?
Well, I don't know if we have quite enough time for that, but I'll give you a couple of bullet points. I'm the chair for the future of work with Singularity University, global think tank. The author of a book called The Next Rules of Work, which is about helping people to navigate a world of exponential change. I talk a lot about mindset, skill set, and tool set. I've got 10 courses on LinkedIn Learning with 1.5 million learners, courses like Learning Mindset, Learning Agility, and Leading Change. And I'm the co-founder of a group called Next Labs, which is a group of AI innovators from around the world that all workshop using generative AI and large language model and other tools to be able to do creative work together. So that's the current, what I call a portfolio of work. And the backstory is I started doing work in Silicon Valley in the early 1980s. So you can do the math. And won about every hat you could wear in Silicon Valley. But before that, I barely escaped high school. I wasn't very interested in college. So I did a lot of odd jobs. And one of the odd jobs was that I fell into the family business. And it turned out that my father was a recovering minister who ended up writing the world's career manual, a book called What Color is Your Parachute, which has 10 million copies in print. So I was trained as a career counselor at the age of 19. And so I have understood a lot of the dynamics from my father's 15 years of work of how it is that humans think about work and learning and how they pivot in their lives. And then my father and I, before he passed away 5 years ago, we started a small but mighty software company based on his work called theparachute.com, where we have online courses to help people to be able to navigate career change. So those are sort of, you can think of as sort of the threads, the elements that guide my work. And then we have a small but mighty consulting company called Charette, where we focus on initiatives with impact. So we've done conferences and built consortia around the future of education, the future of work, the growing gap between haves and have-nots, helping people to have more broadband access in their communities. We tend to tilt at very large windmills, so we like to focus on big problems. And so the recurring themes are the future of work, the future of learning, and the future of organizations.
So why do you think we need new rules for work? What's the instigator or instigators?
So the rules of work have always changed, but a number of them have seemed to be kind of persistent. So the old rules of work, things that we just accept as if they're gospel, like 5 days a week, 40-hour work weeks, these all vary, but from the industrial era, we've inherited quite a number of these old rules that we seem to not be able to jettison. And even when we temporarily test what I call the next rules, the rules that we will probably be following in 10 or 20 years, we bungee cord back to the old rules. We want to go back to the office. We want to go back to 5 days a week and 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day or 18 hours a day if you're in Silicon Valley. But we don't have to. We don't have to simply accept those old rules. We can co-create the next rules of work. And so I've tried very hard to help people to understand that these are not laws of nature. They're laws of humans. They're rules of humans. And we don't have to keep on having these anchors in these old rules. We can not only co-create the next rules, but we can help to create more meaningful, well-paid work for human beings. So that's why I talk so much about mindset, skill set, and tool set. Those are the three legs of the strategies for navigating a world of exponential change and continually co-creating those next rules.
What is it about the mindset of the generations that are in work now that you see are actually different between them?
So that's a good question. I'm often, and I've actually, there's a number of topics that I've been asked to lecture on throughout Altura, and commonly, how is work changing? How is education changing? But
Mm,
often asked about multi-generational organizations and multi-generational work. And as a matter of fact, this is the topic of a talk that I did in Wellington just last November. And the short answer is that I don't think this young people nowadays, I don't think of them as a new generation. I don't use labels like Gen Y and Gen Z. I think they're a new species. I think it's just a completely new kind of human being. Because we are shaped and molded. Sure, our genetics have some small, probably 7 to 10% by the research influence on who we become, but we're shaped by our experiences and by our decisions. And their experiences, I mean, they were born around what we think of as 9/11, seminal inflection point here in the United States. They lived through a global recession when they were young. They lived through a global pandemic, which took away 2 years of their lives at very,
mm,
very key points.
mm,
And now, depending upon their kind of work, they're being influenced by what I call the AI tsunami.
mm,
And so that's just a completely different set of experiences. I didn't have those experiences when I was their age. And as a result, what I suggest is that we have a different framing. So one way to think about that framing is that people from my generation, older generations, there typically would be four things that you would think you would look for in work: what you can get paid for, what you're good at. My father introduced the idea you can also do what you love, and maybe when you retired, you did something the world needed. You worked in the local food bank. But young people have flipped that stack. Now, many of your listeners will recognize this as what's called ikigai in Japan, Ikigai. And it's practiced especially in Okinawa, and they're some of the longest lived people in the world. And what they believe is you need all four of these things to live a meaningful life: to be paid well, to be good at what you do, to be able to love what you do, and to do what the world needs. And so young people flip that stack. So they come out of vocational school, high school, and not all young people, and not just young people, but they first are saying, what does the world need? We keep telling
mm,
them there are all these challenges in the world. The world is on fire. So it's perfectly a rational decision to flip the stack and look at what the world needs. And then if you do that, you'll love it. If you love it, you'll get good at it. If you get good at it, you'll get paid well. So parents ask me all the time, why won't my kid get a real job? CEOs of companies around the world ask me all the time, why do they keep talking about purpose? I never talked about purpose when I was a kid. And the answer is it's a different world. There are different species. They grew up with completely different influences. And, they all have these digital distraction devices that we call mobiles or cell phones that bring them the world's information, and also bring them the world's challenges.
mm,
They're far more connected than I was ever connected. I can't imagine how I would have found childhood friends or friends from high school or any college, but I would ever have kept in contact with any of those people. And now they are hyper connected with all of those people. These are completely different influences than previous generations and previous eras. And so we need to think of how we build multi-generational organizations, communities. And as the social cohesion that older generations used to have, cohesion of multi-generational families in the same
mm,
town, cohesion of membership in religion, cohesion of living in smaller towns rather than just in urban centers. What ends up happening is all of those practices, as we leave them behind, reduce the social cohesion. And so I believe organizations will be one of the places that we will actually reinvent that. We'll see more and more of the mindset, skill set, and tool set for being able to, what I call the organization as community, to build more of that social cohesion, because that will be one of the places that more and more young workers especially will demand it.
How do you see AI, large language models, and even the new announcement from OpenAI yesterday with the capabilities of
Yeah,
ChatGPT, things that are happening
yeah.
affecting those three things: mindset, skill set, tool set?
So first off, it is a tool set. Although a number of people want to keep on declaring that there is artificial general intelligence, and that we've already attained it, and you know, these technologies all look eerily like some of the activities that humans might perform. But the first off, it's important to think of it as a tool set. We could say all that we care about is having these tools automate human tasks, and then work goes away. But you know, that's a dystopian result that I don't sign up for. So I much prefer the world where those tools augment humans, where they help us to have superpowers, they help us to learn about our skills, they help us develop new skills, they help us to connect with others, to be able to collaborate with our skills. And those are tremendously useful applications of the technology. The difficulty is that new technologies, whether it's generative AI or the plow, have always disrupted work. There's always been work that humans did. If you think of it as a landscape, with the lower left being repetitive and boring and sort of analytical, whether that lower left corner is always automated. Not many of us actually pull a plow in a field anymore. But the upper right, where we're solving unique and creative problems, that's where the tools can be most effective. So if our mindset is that we are problem solvers, we are adaptive, we are creative, we have empathy for other humans, then we will be far more effective in being able to navigate a world of exponential change. And then if we develop those same skills, problem solving, adaptive, creative, with empathy, I call this PACE, the skill set that we need will be applicable in a wide range of different situations, no matter what the characteristics of work are in the future.
So educational leaders, school leaders, how should they be thinking about the design of the learning environment, the curriculum, the staffing that they hire, the professional development they offer?
Excellent question. I spend a lot of time with college presidents and people rethinking the future of education. My wife and I were co-producers of a conference on the future of higher education in 2010. It's the topic of my next book, Next Rules of Learning. And the brief points, I've got a long piece on medium.com called Unbundling Higher Education. And it's not just higher education, it's, you know, sort of learning across the board that I wrote a decade and a half ago. And the key points are: one, industrial era models are not our friend. And so if you look at the history of the way we have designed educational systems in the Western world, it comes from industrial era processes. One teacher, what my friend Esther Wojcicki in her book, Moonshots in Education, calls the sage on the stage with all the answers. A bunch of people listening. So like a production in the delivery of information. Those are old rules. That whole and we have these stage gates that we call grades, and we group kids by age cohorts, and we test them with each stage gate and don't allow them to go forward unless they pass the tests. All industrial era models. And so first I would urge educators, administrators, students to step back and look at those systems, the institutions that we have created, and rethink, redesign from scratch what it is that we want as humans go through the arc of their lives, how we want them to be able to have the preparation for the roles of life, for the goals of their life, and to have the tools that they need as they navigate the inevitable phases of their lives. And if we have that mindset, then the process by which we rethink and the tools that we create, the structure by which we help people to learn, will be far more flexible and adaptable, just like the world of work needs to be.
Yeah, really good. So when I'm speaking with schools and school leaders, I'm really trying to open eyes about the tools, the platforms, and the pedagogy that we wrap around that. And I think that this is an inflection point. When computers became more affordable, schools were able to choose to change the way things were done. Now I think with AI and it being so readily accessible, you held up your cell phone before, and anyone can access anything at any time in any way that they want. This is a time when schools will have no choice, leaders will have no choice, and then ultimately the people that come out of schools, workplaces will have no choice but to change. So if you could have it your
Yeah.
way with how workplaces would look and how they would operate, what would that look like?
So first off, just to your point about for educators and administrators, absolutely agree. It's inevitable. What I would want them to do is do exactly the same thing I was talking about as if we think of automation in work as
Mm,
being like sort of inevitable, but what we really want to do is amplify human creativity and capability. It's the same thing within the learning environment. You have to think of these tools not as threats. I don't
mm,
think many people think of calculators as threats anymore, although they used to be.
yes.
Uh, and so instead, if we think of them as tools that create advantage, they create advantage for the educators as much as they do for the learners. And so for the educators, you've opened the aperture. You have the ability to be able to create coursework, to be able to help adapt and customize learning at the most granular level for different learning styles and learning phases and learning
Mm,
contexts. And you've never had those superpowers before.
mm,
And so just completely rethinking what the role of the teacher, Esther Wojcicki in her book says, go from that sage on the stage to the guide on the side. The one with all the answers, now leave that behind. Be the one with the best questions and help
mm,
learners to be able to continually have this passion for learning and thirst for knowledge. So that's in the learning sphere. In the work sphere, it's not that different. If you unbundle work, that is, if you stop thinking of work as this industrial era thing, one person, one job, repetitive work, that sort of thing. Sure, there will always be opportunities like that. And in many cultures around the world, many economies, those are sort of the entry level positions that allow young people to be able to get into the world of work. Those jobs won't go away, but instead, think of flexible work. Think of humans as being problem solvers. So if you could wave a magic wand in the world of work, any organization, and you understood all the problems to be solved, that is the value to be created for the organization stakeholders, and you knew all the skills and capacity of every human in your organization, and you could help them to be able to dynamically bind around those problems. You had an operating system where you would be able to help people identify problems and solve them, and do that hopefully as much as possible as a team sport. You would have the most effective organizations on the planet. Yet
mm,
instead, we fall into these old rules of work where we have job descriptions and really structured work roles. And we have these horrible hiring practices that increasingly use AI to completely dehumanize the process. And if we instead think of, no, 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 this is an opportunity to rethink all of that and create a new operating system for the organization, then what work should be is a flexible process by which we understand the problems to be solved, and then we develop the skills and can continually solve those problems. And there's plenty of great examples around the world of organizations and work platforms that are already doing this. They're just not as
right.
widely distributed, as widely practiced as they could be.
Mm. Well, Gary, thank you very much for your time. Any closing thoughts, and what's the best way for people to get hold of you and find your work?
I just want to reinforce this framing of mindset, skill set, and tool set. So first off, I suggest that you start with mindset. As I'm fond of saying, we all need a 21st century skill set, but mindset eats skill set for lunch. If you go to my website, gbolles.com, I've got a brand new course that I've done with Dr. Evian Gordon, who's sort of one of the most brilliant neuroscientists on the planet. And it's mindset and the brain. And so the more you can understand your own mindset, you can realize really it's just a matter of habits, and you can create new habits. You can think in new ways. You can have much more flexibility, creativity, adaptability in your life. I would start there. And then I've got a LinkedIn newsletter. I've got, as I mentioned, 10 courses on LinkedIn. We've got a course at aparachute.com for people that want to go through career pivots. All of those think of as resources for every person to be able to have the kinds of tool set that they need to be able to determine what's next.
It's fantastic. Gary, really want to thank you for your time. Have a fabulous rest of your day.
Absolutely. You too. Thank you so much.